What's up, my fellow scruffy looking nerd ferders, and welcome to the Carbonite Chat. Today, we're going to be talking about another fan film. And actually, I watched this the first time, and I was iffy on it. I really liked some parts, and wasn't as big a fan of some parts that kind of bothered me, and it left me not sure whether I liked it. Then I watched it again, and I'm a really big fan of it. And before I get into any spoilers, I would suggest going to watch it. It was a 2016 Star Wars fan film select winner. So it has won awards. I don't know whether those awards are legitimate or anything along those lines, but it did open with saying that. I will have the full director's cut linked down below. One thing that you should know before watching it, and this is what affected my initial viewing of it, it is like a Terrance Malik film. And if you don't know who Terrance Malik is, then you're definitely going to be thrown off. This is not your typical Star Wars, and I like the fact, it was intriguing that it showed that you could do a Star Wars film that respects Star Wars and do it completely different than the style. I've always had people ask me about, could Quentin Tarantino or Wes Anderson do a Star Wars film, and I've always kind of leaned towards no. They have more direct styles. Quentin Tarantino can play his out a little bit. He is supposedly going to direct a Star Trek film, so we can see how that goes. That's unlikely he will do both. He's always been more of a Star Trek person. Wes Anderson has joked about doing a Star Wars film, but it's said that they'll never allow him to do it, and I don't believe right now the people that are up there will allow that to happen. Another person that I would love to see, but I don't think that they'll ever be able to work together, is Edgar Wright. All these have very direct styles, and I didn't think that they would be able to work, but maybe they would be able to. They're smarter than I am, so they might be able to figure it out. But whoever did this film, they did it Terrance Malick style, which is very kind of existential, dreamlike. It tells the story through these odd, pictures that are constantly, popping up and expressing themselves to show an idea that's in the character's mind, or to express an idea of what's going on and kind of the build-up or the story of who this character is and what's happening to them in this point in their life. And it doesn't directly do that, but it's definitely in the style of Terrance Malick, kind of along the lines of A Tree of Life. And if you're not prepared for that, it's going to throw you off, because you're going to be hopping around, you're going to be seeing weird things. And the one thing that does kind of bother me with this is it quite honestly doesn't have very good CGI. So there's a lot of other fan films that do a lot better with the CGI, and there's times with this that it's pretty rough. That said, I would not be able to do anything any better, but just having that in mind before going to watch it will help with your second viewing. My first viewing, it kind of was like, it kind of threw me off a little bit, especially with the way it was shot and the way the story was told. But then after rewatching a second time, it's one of my favorite fan films. I'm a huge fan of this, actually, and I get why it was an award winner. If you can get into the story, or kind of grasp the story with the way it's told and what the story is actually telling itself, which at this point I will begin to get into spoilers, so go watch it and then come back. It's basically telling the story of this guy who's in love with this girl, and he goes and joins the Empire. It's kind of interestingly similar kind of concept to Lost Stars. Obviously, Lost Stars is a lot longer and it plays itself out differently. But this one, it tells a story, and he goes and joins the Empire, and he's supposed to come back, and she says, be the same person that you've always been. And then immediately shows him going through these, scenarios where war is brutal, and he's got to do these things because that's what war is. And one of the things it shows is them burning Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen, which is kind of a trope that every fan film kind of plays it out. They're always the stormtrooper that was there to kill them. Surprise, Star Wars, Lucasfilm hasn't decided to make that to be the next standalone film yet, but I'm sure it's coming. They can't do anything outside of the original ideas that's already been set forth because their creativity is lacking. But in this, it begins to go through, and you can kind of tell the struggling. It flashes back between shots of him when he's younger, shots of him seeing things that are rough and that he's struggling with, and then shots of him in the middle of a battlefield with his ears kind of ringing. As you'll see as the story goes on, this is actually the very end of the story. It's him walking somewhere, and we then see as he's beginning to walk in the middle of battle and chaos going on. And I really like what it's doing because, again, this is spoiler, so I'm going to jump forward and kind of tell what happens. He's moving forward to find the girl because in the middle of this battle that he's in, he sees the girl that he was in love with had been fighting for the rebellion. And so now he's on his way to try to get to her because she's been shot, because he was giving the coordinates of how to be able to fire a long-range sniper, and then realized at the last moment that it was her and wasn't quite sure if he could save her, and he's trying to get there. And so as he's trying to march along and get there, the whole story's been about his kind of fight to be able to stay who he is, because she said, "Come back to me as you were," and he's like, "I'll come back a hero," but he's seeing all these things and it's flashing back and forth, but the very premise of the story is it's him walking to her. And so as he's walking to her, everything that's happened in the past is flashing back in his head because he's finally going to see the person that he loves. And so once you understand that kind of the way that the story's being told, it unfolds a lot more naturally and makes you understand the story a little bit better. But so he's thinking back to the last time he met her. And this is key because the last time they met, she gave him a gift and he gave her a gift. And so that's going to reveal at the end when he goes to, kind of shows like, hey, this is me, because it's been a long time since they've seen each other. And they don't really, they're rebel versus, the Empire or an Imperial. And so, that pays itself off then. And it also pays off that she said, don't change. And so he's been struggling on how not to change all this time. And it's also showing the facts of him changing. And it gives a clear evidence of where is the him walking towards her. Is you constantly hear the ear ringing sound, which is very important. And then it kind of, the story of him, how he got there, ends kind of where he's in the bunker helping the guy fire off the sniper shot to end up shooting her. What I loved about this is the whole thing sets it off, and there's not much speaking, which I love when movies can do this. If you can tell your story through visuals, and especially in this type of storytelling kind of concept where you're doing flashbacks and you're trying to put all of the kind of story in this circular thing where it's all happening right here, and then you don't tell us directly what the person's thinking, the main character's thinking in this, and we see him seeing the girl, and you see, oh wow, we saw them burn Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen, and we know that that's Luke's family, and we know the situation that's there. But for him, he doesn't. To him, it's just they were trying to find some droids. They called in and said, hey, make an example of them. We make an example of them. They're kind of struggling with it. But his superior says, hey, you need to deal with this. This is war. And then as he goes forward, he's constantly kind of going to where, yeah, I see that, sometimes these small, brutal things need to happen to protect the galaxy as a whole. And so it's moving forward, but you have a different perspective of it. But then also, you're not being told exactly how he feels in this moment. You see him tackle the guy that's trying to shoot the sniper thing when he realizes that this is the girl that he loved and left. So then when he walks up to her, there's no real words being spoken. And the male actor specifically did a pretty good job here of portraying his feelings, the older version that's as the girl's dying in his arms. And as it's happening, you have ties flying overhead. And as the ties fly overhead, there's also a nice little kind of connection, because when they were together, you see the X-Wings flying overhead. And obviously they each had differing opinions on their feelings of which one liked which side. But you see his reaction, and she's just dying there, and she may have already died at this point. And he looks up with this face, and you see all the ties and kind of the Empire around. In my reaction, and I imagine this kind of how it was trying to portray it and most people would feel, is that it's his thing of, here's him turning against the Empire. He's angry someone from the Empire shot the girl he loved. All of this brutality's been happening all around him. And all in all, he couldn't make it back to the person he loved. She's there dead. But I love the twist they put on the end of it, which is the exact opposite of that happens. He's putting her down. He's going to, burn her like Luke did to Vader. And because she's died, obviously. And he's thanking her. And he says, I don't know what got you to join the rebels, but I don't blame you. I blame them. And he tosses the little, gift that she gave him onto the thing. And he goes, thank you for freeing me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Because as you find out, he was struggling with this because he was falling away from being himself, and he needed to be himself when he got back to her because that was a promise. But now that she's gone, he doesn't have to be himself. He can become the cold-blooded killer that he needs to be. This person that doesn't care what happens to these other people. And that's as he says. He says he doesn't have his name, and that's why the name of the movie is TK436. He goes, I'm not Adam from wherever he is from. He goes, I'm TK436. He goes, my skin is not my skin anymore. My my armor is my skin. And he's like, now I can be what I need to be. I can, and I love that twist. I love that turn. And I love the way it was set up, where you very well can be in the same mindset as him. But again, that's the brilliance of not telling the audience everything. You're showing it. You're letting the audience think for themselves. And especially with the way this film was kind of put together, I just think it's brilliant. I absolutely love it. The more I think about it, the more I enjoy it. I wish it could have been put together with like the guy who did the cinematography for Emergence, which I'll link that down below. I'll link the video down below. I did do a fan review of it. I thought that was one of the most beautifully shot fan films I'd seen. And, something along with like some of the guys that did the CGI for The Apprentice, the Darth Maul fan film. That, because the story and everything that was done, I loved it. But it's just the CGI, it was quite bad. It was quite awful, which is very unfortunate for just the skill of the story that was being told here. And anyways, I really enjoyed it. I could just go on a little bit about it, and I will look forward to hearing your thoughts and opinions, and we can discuss them further and go on about them down below in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, and never forget, you Nerf herders, I love you.